What's poppin', Rip City? I'm Caleb Love, and you're listening to the Blazers Balcony with Brooke Olzendam and Casey Holdahl.
Greetings, Blazer fans, and welcome to the Blazers Balcony presented by Spirit Moutain Casino, episode 150. Wow. The Blazers Balcony presented by Spirit Moutain Casino. I am your co-host, Casey Holdahl. I'm joined by my co-host and friend, Brooke Olzendam. I am in North Portland. She is in Detroit. Brooke Olzendam, how's it going?
It's going. It's gone great. It's been an interesting road trip. We're halfway through it. I get a little bit under halfway because obviously the first two are back-to-backs. But coming off a win, I have no complaints. We went through customs relatively well. Coming back from Toronto last year, not so much. So it was an improvement in that area. It wasn't a couple hours. It was relatively brief. And so got into town a little bit later than normal, but no excuses. It was back-to-back, but like I spoke with Tiago, and he was like, everything was as we would normally, go about it. We're not making excuses for being tired, even though we did get in very late. But it's fine. I mean, I was just showing you outside my hotel. I'm on the second floor, so I'm relatively close to the. Why do I keep saying relatively? I never say that word. I've said it like 4 times.
You are close to the ground.
I am close to the ground. And looking outside, there's a lot of parking going on because there is a football game tonight. The Lions are playing the Dallas Cowboys.
Oh, that's good to know. I need to set my lineups then.
Okay, yes, you do. So I saw a lot of Cowboys fans in the elevator. I'm like, what's going on? Then I put 2 and 2 together. So there's a lot of like looking for parking outside. So that's been my television. I haven't been watching anything. I've been looking out my window and watching people try to find parking places, and that has been my entertainment for tonight.
I thought maybe they were coming to check out the new RoboCop statue that just went up in Detroit.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
So the movie RoboCop is set in Detroit. And I guess for years and years and years, some guy who owns a shop has been trying to get a RoboCop statue put up in Detroit. And they just finished it yesterday, I guess, and unveiled it yesterday. So there is now a RoboCop statue that's 2.5 miles away from the hotel. I actually already looked where you guys were staying.
If it was like half a mile or less, I would go see it just for you. But 2.5 is pushing it.
Well, I told some of the other folks who are on the trip who are a little more adventurous in terms of walking around. So they might check it out at some point in time, Brooke. So maybe you could get a download from them.
Ouch.
But otherwise,
ouch.
No, that's not an ouch. Like that's just the truth. That's just your thing. You don't like to do that. And there's nothing wrong with that.
I just like my warmth, even though I had my big coat with me. I actually had to part with it on the bus ride to the game yesterday to Cleveland. I knew I'd just hop on the bus and hop off because we stayed the night. And I was wearing my, my parka, my big puffy parka that I love to wear.
Your Canadian Goose.
Yes, my Canadian Goose that I got in Toronto, obviously. And so I was wearing it and it was great. And then all of a sudden, like I was getting ready to put it on to go out to the bus in Cleveland. I'm like, I need to part ways with it just for a little bit. It's because it's engulfing me, so I just left it there and I said, I want to miss it. So I left it in my room, went down with no coat. And again, it was just a quick jaunt from the lobby to the bus. So I was fine. But I had to just have some space from it. And now I'm excited for it to be back because it's actually colder here in Detroit than it was in Cleveland, if you can believe it. Neck and neck, but they're both pretty cold.
Yeah, I can believe it, actually. Though, so Cleveland's on the lake, so you assume that's going to be a little bit colder, but maybe Detroit is too. I actually don't know. We so infrequently actually stay in Detroit that it's kind of interesting you guys are staying there this time. I did have one more question, though, Brooke, about the travel, because he mentioned it multiple times. Is Calabro just making fun about his ability to get through customs, or is he actually holding something right now or did he forget his passport? What's the deal there? Because he's mentioned multiple times now about difficulties getting in and out of Canada. So I'm curious if this is just a bit or if there's actually some reality to this.
Casey, I'm a little disappointed that you've known Kevin Calabro for 10 years, and if you think anything he says is real, then I'm a little shocked.
I'm just the fact that he mentioned it a couple times. Again, I assumed that he was just making fun, but I don't know. Maybe Kevin has a titanium hip, or he's got prescription drugs that you gotta kind of work around. Maybe he's I don't think he's a carrying firearms kind of guy, but I don't know. I try not to make any assumptions about people, or too many assumptions about people these days, Brooke.
Oh, so I will. No, I will. I'm here to clear the air for anyone that thought he was being serious. He was absolutely not. He just was being funny, just to because you got to bring it up because it's an interesting situation. You don't do that anywhere else when you travel to another team or to another city in the NBA. So when you go there, it's different. So I think it was just him like mentioning it and saying, yeah, we did this, but no, he got through just fine. We all
Good.
got through just fine.
I assumed he did.
Yeah, but when he does that and then it catches a little bit of tread, then people start laughing a little bit, then that's going to recur. It's going to come back, which it should. That's why I love him so much because Kevin loves a bit and he will stick to that bit. Hence the Canadian national team that we've been doing for years.
That's true. There are a number of bits where, and even sometimes I'm like, oh, they're still doing this. Oh, okay, sure, all right.
Sometimes we just do it for ourselves, guys, and I'm sorry if it gets a little annoying to you, but
no,
it's just,
you gotta please yourself. That's as the song goes. Can't please everyone.
Can I add something that you just made me think of? So when we go through security, like I've talked about this before in the podcast, where I always ride the same bus as Tiago, so I can see him, and that's my first interview. So it just gives me peace of mind, And there's once like last week where he went on an early bus and I was like, where is he? What's happening? Am I on the wrong bus? It just freaked me out. But anyways, so we kind of have the same group most of the time, same group on each bus. And so I realized that I now go right in front of one of our security guys. Because we have 3, they're on every bus, which, makes sense. You need one on every bus. And so I put my stuff down and it goes through the machine. And then he puts his stuff down. I'm not sure if I should say names when it comes to security, so I won't. But he puts his stuff down, and he's like, "By the way, I'm carrying." And I've talk about bits. My new thing is, and I'll say, "By the way, I'm not." Say it every time, and I think it's driving him crazy. But I think it's so funny in my own mind where I'd be like, "Hey, by the way, I'm carrying," and they know because there's always security for every NBA team. But then no one's talking to me. They're just putting my bag in. And I go, by the way, I'm not carrying. And the ladies and the guys, they sometimes laugh, but they don't know I've been doing this every single time we go through security. So I'm going to keep going with it. I'm going to collaborate and keep saying, by the way, I'm not carrying until he tells me, Brooke, you got to stop doing that. Because I
was going to say that you should flip that and you say, I'm also carrying, but just carry something with you in your hand, like a jelly bean or something. But then I got to thinking, you really can't joke around with federal security people. Like they have to take everything. I don't know if they have to. They take everything at face value. I've gotten into a few arguments with TSA people from time to time, and it never goes especially well. So yeah, don't take my advice, Brooke. You should play it straight.
Thank you. I will. But do you remember this story? I think I told it 5 or 6 years ago, where I went to a steakhouse the night before we had a game. And I
had a knife. Yeah.
And I had a steak
Phoenix.
knife, like a very serious. Good job. Very serious knife. And the guy was like, ma'am, I think you have a knife in your bag. I was like, no, why would I have a knife? I really didn't know. I forgot because the lady was so nice. She's like, just take it home with you. We have a ton of knives, because I took the steak home with me. How am I going to cut the steak when I get back to the hotel room? So anyways, we walked through and Rassan was with me, a couple other people. I'm like, I cannot believe that they thought I had a knife in my bag. And I get to the room, the ladies' locker room. I start taking my stuff out. I'm like, OMG, I have a knife in my bag. And I kept telling her, I was like, I think it's the heel of my shoe. I'm sure it must be the heel of my shoe. I talked my way through security with a full-blown steak knife in my bag. And then when we got to the room, I opened it up. I'm like, oh my gosh. That story was one of my favorites because I was dead positive I did not have a knife. And I sure did.
Yeah, I had one of those one time when I had packed, I went to Las Vegas. I took my Nintendo Switch with me. I forgot that I took it with me. When coming back, they're like, you've got electronics in your bag. I was like, no, I don't. I already took them out. And I got real pissy about it. And then I was like, oh, right. Yeah. The Switch that I had in the bottom of my bag the entire time. Sorry, guys. So, yeah.
Don't you hate that when you're positive? Like you're really positive about something. And then they're like, I know you do.
Yeah.
I know you do.
But I will say, I love being on the opposite side of that more than I hate being on the other side of it. So I love to be the one that's like, oh, so you're wrong. Oh, how about that? Who would have thought? That for me is worth it to take oh, you were right. I was wrong. Because I feel like I'm pretty quick to also be like, yeah, I'm stupid. Okay.
You are.
No, you are. I love it to go back the other direction and be like, oh, so you weren't right. So
it feels good.
It does feel good. Well, what feels good is not losing, but thank you, Brooke, to get a victory on the second night of back-to-back, as your Portland Trailblazers did, as Brooke mentioned. Trailblazers out on yet another 4-game trip. The habit of the 2025-26 Trailblazers of being out for an extended road trip, playing 2 games at home, and then heading back out for another extended road trip, which has happened at least I know it's happened at least twice now, perhaps 3 times, stinks. And I am not on the trip, so as you can tell by my beautiful backdrop here, so I'm not having to endure it. But Brooklyn, of course, is with the team as they traverse through 3 teams in the Eastern Conference, and then the Memphis Grizzlies, who should probably be in the Eastern Conference anyways. And the Trailblazers got that trip off to a start with a 121-118 loss to the Raptors in Toronto, in a game that, again, as there's been so many games this season for the Trailblazers, if they just had done maybe 1 or 2 things even just a little bit better, they could have come away with that win in that game versus the Raptors. In my personal opinion, as has been an issue at times this season, was free throws. The Blazers missed a bunch of free throws in that game, end up losing the game by 4, and I think they missed 11 free throws. Granted, that kind of happens sometimes, but it's happened often enough. And I thought that Tom had a good stat on the broadcast last night, which I actually think he got from me, about the Blazers shooting 10 percentage points better from the free throw line in wins than they shoot in losses. And that is the second biggest differential between a win and a loss in terms of your free throw shooting. And the reason why I looked it up was because I kept thinking, I was like, boy, I feel like the Blazers miss a lot of free throws, and it's really affecting their chance to win. But then when I looked at the percentage, I was like, oh, but they're average. So why does it feel like it's worse than it is? And then I was like, well, maybe I'll see what it's like when they shoot free throws and losses compared to wins. And that's when I was like, oh, well, that makes sense now, because it does seem when they lose games, they don't shoot free throws especially well. And so in that game versus the Raptors, the Blazers, I think they were down, I think it was like 16 or 14 going into the fourth
16.
quarter.
Oh, at some point they were down 16.
Right. And I think they were down 16 in the third and then 15 going into the fourth. And then they rally and get back into the game, give themselves a chance. But those missed free throws in the first half, I think were problematic. And then they didn't get some calls late in the game. Denny got hacked, with 9 seconds to play, didn't get called. So the Blazers do end up losing that one, as I mentioned, 121-118. But in a pretty good game for the Blazers, and I would say both the Raptors and the Cavaliers. I think people expected Cavaliers to be pretty good. I don't think they expected the Raptors to be this good, but the Blazers, playing a good game in both of those. They shoot almost 50% from the field versus the Raptors, 38% from 3, but just 66% from the line. And again, that's one of those games where if you just look at the stats and you don't look at everything but free throw shooting and the final score, you look at it and you say to yourself, well, the Blazers probably won that game, though the Raptors did shoot 53% from the field, so that's not great either. But the fact that they did a lot of things really well in that game and just, lost in large part because they went 21 of 32 from the free throw line, that on one hand, you feel good about the way you played, but on the other hand, it's like, boy, free throws are something that we should just probably be a little bit better at anyways. That's something we can improve upon. So I guess you could look at it one of 2 ways. One, it's either disappointing that we lost because of free throws, or 2, we know we can fix that. So it's something that we know we can get better at. So while we wish we would have won, it's still something that we feel like we can address. So, to start off the trip with a pretty good game, but ending up in a loss, I think particularly on the first night of a back-to-back, puts you in a tough spot. Luckily, they were able to bounce back and win the second game of the back-to-back. But Brooke, what was kind of your takeaway from the game in Toronto? A place where the Blazers have had quite a bit of success as of late. Unfortunately, not able to get that one the other night to start the trip.
Yeah, there was some sort of stat where the Blazers have beaten Toronto in Toronto more than any other team over the last amount of years. I can't remember exactly what it was, but I do recall feeling like we win there a lot. I mean, you only go there once a year, but yeah. I do recall feeling like.
You remember when Nurk got his teeth knocked out there that one time?
Oh my gosh, now I do. I forgot about that. So you just said it, but yes. Oh, and he kept playing.
Yeah, and I think they won.
I think we won. There was a weird. They played well enough to win. I feel like this is a recurring theme here. But after the game, I really was hanging on every word Thiago Splitter said, because he was pretty passionate about how he felt about that game. I wasn't sure, he could have said we fought, we were in it. I mean, he did. But he also had a lot of things to say where they could improve. Like
Yeah.
we need to play 48 minutes. I could tell you that was, for some reason, that one I feel like really like hit him harder than some other of the close losses.
I agree, Brooke. When I was watching his post game, I noticed a different edge. I feel like in some of his comments, I was like, oh, okay, like he's a little pissed off about the way this one went.
Disappointed. That line where your parents will say, "I'm not mad at you, I'm just disappointed." Like that hurts more than anything. I feel like he was disappointed, and there are a few things down the stretch that I think he said they just lost. They lost focus. Things that they work on, they talk about all the time, they weren't putting into play, and so I would not to skip over that because it was a tough one. Like it was again a game they could have won, but to move on to a more positive aspect, when they won against Cleveland, he said everything we talked about last night, we talked about this morning, and they do a walkthrough. It's a second of a back-to-back, so there's no shoot around, but they go through. They sit in they have their room in the hotel, not the lobby, but like their own ballroom where they can kind of walk through things. They talk through things. And he said, we talked about it for a while. Like we said, these are the things we didn't execute last night. So he was very pleased that it was a different outcome, the next night. So I think that's really telling that they get in at 3 a.m. I don't know if I never said the exact time, but we got in super late last night, the night before, and it was late. And I remember thinking, like, should I set an alarm and get up and then take a nap? It's one of those things where you're kind of off, but again, it's not an excuse because they won the game, so good for them. But it was one of those things where they said, okay, we're not going to make an excuse. We're tired. Yeah, it was a quick turnaround. But we have to discuss the things that we didn't do last night, and we can't let that happen tonight. And I will say that the first quarter being there, I don't know how it felt while watching it on TV, and I said this in the post game to Tiago, I said, this is one of those games where they were hitting everything in the first quarter. And I felt like, this is one of those games that could get away from them real fast and they won't be able to get it back. I mean, any team, you just have that feeling like, they're hot. And they got up to, I think they're down 10 early, and then Cleveland, kept playing well and hitting shots in the second quarter. But then it was like back and forth rallying. And then we went on a run, and then they went on a run, and then we went on a bigger run. And it was just like really inspiring to see that you get down early on a night where you're like, well, we could say we're tired, but no, not at all. And then down the stretch, when even Cleveland came back to make it get within single digits, it was nerve-wracking in that building because I'll tell you, those fans, they're hot or cold for that team. When they're not doing well, they are pissed. They were booing at the Cavs when they got down, when we kept hitting shots and they weren't making anything. And there were some turnovers on their end, but they were booing them, and then they were rallying them in the fourth quarter. So like they were into it. If they're happy or upset, they were still very into it. And so down the stretch, I was like, oh gosh, we can't have another one of these endings. We just can't. And I was really proud of them. Tamani said it afterwards. They just continue to stay connected, talk to each other, make sure this doesn't get out of our reach. And that they did a great job. And it was one of those games, and I've talked about this before, where it's so nice. It's such a lovely feeling to look at the box score and say, who should I interview? It could be Denny. It could be Tumani. It could be Caleb Love. It could be Ceedee. He had made one of his best nights. It was like you go down the roster of who played, 10 plus minutes, and it could be anybody. And Tumani's just been on, kind of like a little uptick every game recently.
Absolutely.
So I could interview Denny every night. Let's be real. So I was like, let's do Tumani, and I'm glad we did. And he's great, and I'm happy for him that he's kind of getting into a rhythm. And it was just a happy ending after the game. And it was funny because there are a few other, I think they are PR people for Cleveland that were in the room to interview Tiago, but I was the only one that asked any questions. And then afterwards I looked in the camera, I was like, where are you, Casey Holdahl? I don't think there, but I did say that because everyone's like, so when you say always you, I was like, no, Casey's usually here. But anyways, I held the fort down for us in the post-game press conference.
Yeah, you did great.
I was very happy.
You did great. And I texted you right away. I was like, hey, you did a great job with that. Not that I knew you would, but because I knew you would, but I was curious if there was anyone else in the room because, Cleveland's not a huge media market and there's no real like Portland ties there. there's always a chance there's going to be some Chinese media now because of Hansen, but
There were, but they didn't ask any
they're
questions. They did
generally
for pregame, but not postgame.
I didn't watch all of Thiago's pregame, but I saw that it was 8 minutes, and first thing I thought was, oh, someone must have asked him about Hansen, because there's no way that there was 8 minutes of game discussion prior to the Cleveland Cavaliers on the second night of a back-to-back in the pregame if there wasn't some other thing being searched. So kudos to you, Brooke, because you did a great job in that postgame. And also, like, you got a lot of good stuff. And I wanted to circle back real fast just about the preparation, because you're exactly right. And that was kind of the first thing I thought of in that game when Thiago was talking about, the film work that they did prior to the game versus the Cavs, because it reminded me of kind of what they talked about when they had those couple practices after Thanksgiving, which were their first practices that they had since the beginning of the season, and their ability to kind of address some things then. And I feel like we kind of did see like some tangible results from kind of some of the stuff they wanted to address and improve upon. And so then for them to talk about that, for Thiago to kind of be disappointed and frustrated after that Raptors game, and then get to Cleveland and then be like, all right, let's talk about what we didn't do well in our pregame meeting that we have at the hotel. And the fact that he singled out that, like, we really watched a lot of film to kind of talk about some of the stuff we didn't do right. And then to see that then for them to have the performance they had versus the Cavaliers, I think really goes to show, even if they hadn't won that game versus the Cavs, it's like the fact that they're able to recognize the things that they're not doing correctly and then address them and then do those things better the next night. It's great to get the win, but it's also just great to know that, like, hey, like they are improving, like, and this is something that they can get into practice or even just a film session and address. And that's something that, I think particularly for a young team and for a team that's kind of, trying to find their way, I think that's a really important thing, that they're able to get that coaching and then apply that coaching that same night and see it work. Because one, it's just great that they're able to get the win, but two, when you see that the stuff that the coaching staff is asking you to do and it has a tangible positive result, I just think it makes you want to kind of be coached more and to lock in more in terms of what you're being asked from the staff. So I thought that was great. And the fact that they talked about that and the fact that you got that, Brooke, I thought was really neat.
Thank you. Well, it's funny. I didn't prompt either Tumani or Caleb, who were my two post-game interviews. I didn't say, so how helpful was the talk this morning with Coach? I didn't bring that up. I just said, what was the difference? And they each brought it up on their own. So to your point, that it stuck with them. They wanted to make sure that was known, that they were paying attention and that they were listening and that they wanted to respond in the right way. And that's exactly what we saw in that Cleveland game. And I was so happy that they ended up pulling it out, because I watched all those things you just talked about, all the things that they discussed the morning of how to do it differently than the night before. And I watched them, they were talking, they were communicating. You could see that they're not tonight. It just felt that way towards the end, even though Cleveland had that, was gaining momentum there towards the end. I just felt as though they weren't going to let this one happen the way it happened the night before. And they both Caleb and Tumani, I'm sure anyone else who spoke, gave credit to that talk that morning. It was interesting because like you said, Thiago brought it up and it was very, I could tell that was a big deal. But then for the players to bring it up on their own and give that credit to the win, it must have been pretty impactful. And so, and it's they're the young guys, Caleb, he doesn't have a ton of experience in such, yes, in college and things like that, but in the NBA, a ton of experience like that. And we've talked so much where he doesn't need it. He just is going to go. He wants, even Thiago laughed. He's he's really confident, even when he shouldn't be.
I love that Thiago, he needles Caleb. I think every time he talks about Caleb, he's always like, yeah, that was great. Some of the shots he takes, I don't really agree with, but I was glad he made them. I think it's such a player mentality to always mention that, he was awesome. Yeah, he took some shots that I don't think we should have taken, but he made them, so it's great. Which I think there's been 3 separate occasions now where he's done that, and I love it every time.
And I feel like Caleb would even be like, yeah, maybe I shouldn't have taken that shot, but
that's kind of who he is. That, you look at Caleb's percentages and you're like, well, oh, okay, but it's almost like he's a specialist in terms of scoring, and some nights he's gonna have it and some nights he's not, And it's almost like you're just like, hey, particularly with this team right now,
love me or leave me.
we just need it. And yeah, like, you know what? Like, we're gonna like it or lump it. Like, we'll do either one. Like, we're just gonna deal with it.
I love him so much. I told you, I think I told you, I told him, but one of my friends said, "Who's that guy? Dibbles McGee." I was like, "Caleb." Yeah, that Caleb guy. I was like, and I told him, I go, "My friend called you Dimples McGee," and I think Matisse heard. He's like, "Oh God," which I'm like, actually, you could go by that as well.
I thought that was Matisse. I thought that was Matisse's nickname.
Caleb even has him bigger than I never thought Matisse would be out dimpled, but Caleb Love has out dimpled Matisse.
And you know, Matisse he's hurt by that too. Like that's why he said that.
He's
like
fine.
he's gonna act like he doesn't care. He cares.
He's so funny. It's been nice having him on this trip. I know we all wish he could be playing, but he's like, you know, we've talked about this. It's like having another adult in the room. Like Matisse is just like our pal, our buddy. It's nice. He was standing next to me. Like I'm in the tunnel in Toronto. So not Cleveland, in Toronto, I'm in the tunnel. And it was like a hotbed of people going in and out. There's like a club back there. It's kind of like when I'm in Sacramento and everyone thinks I'm like the person checking people into the club and they keep showing me their pass. And
that's right. Yeah, because they're like right by the locker room. Yeah.
I'm like at the tall table and they're like, "Hey, so my buddy has this pass." I'm like, "You're in. Go ahead. You're fine."
You should start asking for tips.
I know.
You should be like, "I'll get you." I mean, like I'll look the other way. Like,
yeah, I'll let you in, but my tip jar is not very full right now.
You should just put a jar out the next time you go to Sacramento. Don't write anything on it. Just put it on your table and see.
Then just wave people in. Yeah, exactly. Wave people in. Yeah, I should totally do that. But anyways, it was similar like that to in Toronto. And so Matisse comes out at like halftime and he doesn't feel like sitting because he's eating popcorn, he's eating a snack. So he's standing against like the bleachers across from me. Not the bleachers, this, you know what I mean? Like he's standing across from me, like 10 feet, and we're talking. And a lady comes up, she's like, "Sir, I'd really like you to take your seat." Or she said something like, "Sir, you really need to sit down." And I was gonna say something, and I'm like, "Brooke, underperformed. Matisse is an adult. He can tell, he can say that he is a player." I mean, I was like this, he's what? No, Brooke, just don't. So I just shut up. I mean, I'm always ready in case I need to, but I like don't need to jump over and like Matisse can handle his own business. And he said to her, he's like, "No, I play for the team. I just want to stand here now." And then she was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry." So we just stood there and I looked at her. I'm like, that is such a funny thing where they're like, "Sir, you really need to sit." And he's like, "I'd rather," because, you know, he's wearing his everyday gear. So he looks like he's a fan. He doesn't look like...
They don't give players credentials, which I often think about sometimes. It's like, if that's one of us, she looks at our credentials, she's like, "Oh, they're fine." But a player, it's like...
he was raw dogging it. He had no credential. He was just standing there eating popcorn. And she was like, "Sir, you need to sit down." And I was like, this is funny. So I told myself to shut up and I just watched it. And he looked at her and he was very, you know, polite as he always is. He's like, "Well, I play for the team." And then she's like, "So sorry." And then he stood there and, you know, in pleasure eating his popcorn and not moving. But I thought of the same thing, like they don't have credentials, so how would you know unless you just say, "I play for the team"? But then how many people stand there and be like, "Well, I play for this team," and how would they know? Like it's a loophole we've just found.
Well, yeah, and you don't want to do the like, "Well, you're tall, so you must be a player." So like it's a no-win situation for that arena staff person there. So
by the way, just a quick circle back when we had that whole segment on people, not fans really, but people that are in the hotel get in the elevator and say, "Wow, you're tall, you must play basketball," and it drives me crazy. And we had a whole segment on it. And so I get in. I've already told Casey this story, but it was last trip, I think. And I got in with Jeremy and Drew Holiday, and it was where were we? Somewhere on the West Coast. And we got in the elevator, and these two women, it was a younger lady and an older, and I could sense, I was like, it's coming. This older lady cannot help herself.
Can't do it.
And she couldn't. She's like, "You're so tall."
I'm telling you, there is something evolutionary about that. Like it is hard coded somewhere in our psyches that like you have to comment on someone who looks especially tall when you're in an enclosed space with them. Like there has to be something going back thousands of years in our evolution that was hard coded somewhere, because it is as sure as taxes and anything else and death. Like, it is going to happen.
When we got off the elevator, I was walking with Jeremy and I told him, I go, Jeremy, I got to tell you, Casey and I just did literally the last podcast we did was about this exact situation. And I told him how much it drives me nuts. And Jeremy, he doesn't get ruffled. He's very, he's very cool, calm, collected. He goes, he said it to me. And I told you this, Casey. He looked at me and goes, they literally can't help it.
They can't help it. They can't. I don't know why. Again, that's what makes me think there's something like, there's something beyond just kind of the intelligence factor. That is innate. It's instinctual.
Something in our chromosomes.
Exactly. Yeah, that it is coded on there, and it is not going away for whatever reason. The other thing I wanted to mention too that you mentioned, Brooke, as I don't think we said it. Trailblazers did get the victory versus the Cavaliers, second out of back-to-back on Wednesday, 122-110. And as you mentioned, Brooke, the Blazers, the Cavs got it down to, I believe, 5 with like 2:30 to play. And then the Blazers finished the game out by going 9-3 to get the win, with Denny hitting a bunch of free throws in that 9-3, which was very helpful for me because I was going to write a short story about free throws anyways, and Denny doing that was helpful. And one of the other things you mentioned there, Brooke, was, about not giving up in that game and about like being determined to win. And I do feel like this team, I felt like that was kind of something that 5-6 years ago, people would complain sometimes, be like, do these guys even care about losing? And that's always like, of course they do. Like, maybe like they don't show it as much as you want them to, but yeah, they care. Like, they get mad when they lose. But this team too, like, I think part of it is like Denny, because he's like a real competitor and has kind of like a real way about him in terms of winning. I don't know if it's Tumani. I don't know if it's kind of Drew's presence, but like whatever, I think maybe Donovan might have a little something to do with it too. Whatever it is, it does seem like this team is a little more pissed off when they lose, and like really takes an approach that like, we don't want to lose this game in a way that I just don't feel like I necessarily remember from maybe some other teams in the past. And I don't know if maybe you felt that or noticed that, but that's just one of the things I've kind of like in watching the team. And it's not just that they don't want to lose. It's like they refuse to give up on games. And it's not even just kind of like the performative, perfunctory, like we're down 20 and let's try to get it closer so it looks like a better game. And some guys, I think, in blowouts, like try to get their shots more than others on past teams. So I think sometimes that makes it look like they're trying maybe a little harder than you maybe think they are. But this team, it really feels like they don't feel like they're out of games, and they keep playing hard in order to get back into games. And I think we saw that in Toronto, like you're down 15 in the fourth quarter. You kind of assume that that's that. Like they play so hard in those moments that like I always feel very confident that like they're going to give themselves a chance in this game. And I guess that's one of the things I'm saying too, is that even when there hasn't been that many blowouts this year, but even when they end up losing games, like late in games, it still feels to me like they have a chance. And, I've been doing this a long time. Like, I feel like I'm pretty quick to kind of be like, nah, this game's done. Like, I know which way this one's going to go. With this team, like, I find myself having to kind of reconsider that a little bit, because it seems like they really have something about them that allows them to compete better in games or to stay in games. Whereas I feel like maybe previous teams, that wouldn't necessarily be the case.
I feel like back when, again, the struggles and, losing by 20 plus, I think, unfortunately, like when that starts happening, you get down. It's hard. It's hard. Like, I mean, we're just covering it is hard. We obviously, you and I have done, did that for a few years. And I don't think that the guys that were there for that, they remember, they don't want to feel that anymore. They don't want to feel that. And so even when I mentioned earlier, when Cleveland got out to that fast start, and it was one of those feelings, like I recall in the past, like, okay, this one might go the way I don't want it to go. And it didn't, obviously. They came back and, they fought back to get it back. They tied it. They went up, and they continued to build on that and build on their lead. And I agree with you. I think I totally agree with you that Denny plays a huge role in that. And all those guys, no one on the team wants to lose or feels okay with losing. Donovan Clingan is a bona fide winner. He's a champion. He knows what that feels like, and he doesn't like the alternative. And Denny's just a competitor. Like, I don't think he likes to lose it. I remember, that's funny. I remember when we did the Say What game last year, his first year, and he couldn't get any of them. At one point, he was like, Brooke, this, English isn't my first language. I was like, I know, I feel really bad about this. And then the last one was chips and salsa, and he got it, and he jumped off the couch. I jumped off the couch. We embraced. It was like we just won, $1 million. He was so excited that he got chips. He got one of them right. Just an example of he wants to win at everything. He wants to be a competitor, and he wants to compete. He wants to win. That's just in his nature. And I think that is something that just like kind of rubs off on people, on his teammates. And Tumani too, like they the whole team, they don't want to lose. They don't like it. None of us enjoy the feeling. It's not fun for anyone that works for the team. You watch them play so hard, and then you come up short. It's like, dang it, So I don't feel if every once in a while there will be a game that doesn't go their way. There'll be maybe 30-point loss. Unfortunately, that's just every team. Even the team, best team in the league is going to have one of those. But they don't want to even talk about it. They don't even want to come close to something like that. They want it to be competitive to the end. And that's why we've seen so many games come down to single digits. And I swear I saw a stat that we were number one in the league with, how close our losses in terms of point differential. So I think that this team completely is night and day in terms of accepting losses. They deal with them, and we've seen them react quickly. We saw Thiago, as we just talked about, have a meeting, and the next morning they discussed it and they reacted. We've seen them have a player-only meeting when they didn't like the way they lost that game. So even after a loss, they're going to say, okay, well, we don't like the way that felt. Let's not do that again. So I feel like you're correct. They're not out of any game. I never feel like that. I always feel like no matter what, even if the other team gets up to a fast start, it could change on a dime. And what were we down 22 earlier this year? Or was it 23? Came back and won the biggest second biggest. I don't know. I saw that set a while back. It's probably changed, but at the time it was the biggest, comeback in terms of points. And I just feel like that could happen at any given night.
Yeah, I did see a historical stat that the Blazers have had more 1-point losses than any team in NBA history.
I did see that too.
Yeah, which I don't know if maybe that's the stat you were referring to or not there, Brooke, but
I think it was a different one, but I saw that one too.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Trailblazers finishing off this trip, 2 more games versus the Pistons on Friday and then the Grizzlies on Sunday, which means, Brooke, that you will be going to Detroit, Little Caesars Arena, my favorite place to eat in the entire NBA.
I was deciding if it was possible for me to bring you back pizza or if it would be bad by then. I think it'll be bad by then.
I'm not saying you should, but I'm pretty sure I've carried that pizza for longer on trips and then eaten it than you would in terms of if you got it on Friday and then brought it back and then you gave it to me on Monday. I've on as a course of habit, I eat pizza longer than 5 days old. So it would probably be okay, but also, traveling through multiple time zones also feels kind of weird. And there is a Little Caesars not far from my house. So having you mule Little Caesars across the country to me when it's one, the cheapest pizza option, and 2, very easily accessible. It seems like a little too much of an ask, Brooke, but
Next time.
If a piece of pizza does show up somewhere,
you wouldn't be mad about
it. Do it. Yeah. So kind of what are you looking forward to the rest of this trip, Brooke? Obviously, it'd be great if they were able to get a few more wins. Blazers currently in 10th place right now, tied with the Memphis Grizzlies at a 9-13 record. The Pistons, one of I would say the surprise team in the NBA this year. I think everyone assumed they were going to be better. I don't know they necessarily thought they were going to be 17-5 better. One thing I would say, though, is they have had 3 losses in their last 5 games. So after, how many games did it win? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. They had a 13-game winning streak.
Wow.
Didn't last year they have a 20-game losing streak or something like that?
Yeah.
So I mean, congratulations to the Detroit Pistons, but they've had a few struggles as of late. So will be interesting to see if the Blazers are able to give them a game in Detroit. Obviously, coming with some momentum after getting that win versus the Cavaliers, playing some pretty good basketball right now. Sounds like they're not going to have a whole lot of guys back. No new additions, or at least no guys coming off the Blazers injury report. Some guys, I think Donovan and I think Rob are both listed as questionable. Hansen is now with the remix. That game on Thursday, also by the house that I will be attending here actually in the next couple hours.
Nice.
So what are you looking forward to here, Brooke? It's I think the Pistons are an interesting team. Obviously, the Grizzlies are a team that has gotten better after kind of having a little bit of a tough start to the season. So, what are you hoping for, Brookie?
I'm hoping to string together a couple games. Like it's fun to have a bounce back win, but I would like to see consistency. Like the
Yeah.
next game, continue on and not say, oh gosh, we kind of went back to our old ways or did a few things that like the Toronto game that are out of our character, things that we don't want to be doing. I don't want to see. I really don't want to see that. I want to see the opposite. I want to see them saying, okay, what did we do well in that game against Cleveland? Continue it into the next game against Detroit. Get that one. Go to Memphis. Do it again. Head home, then you get back on the road, do it again. But you know what I mean? Like string together some games. And I know they are down a number of, and whenever I see like other sideline reporters, like in Toronto, in Cleveland, we're always like, so how's it going? And I find myself, the first thing I say is, well, we got a lot of injuries. I'm like, well, but we've been playing like that for a while. So that's not an excuse. And they've figured out a way to find ways to win without some of their guys that are really important to this team. So I would like to see stringing together some positive games that they figure out a way to finish them as they did Cleveland. Let's see them do that again against Detroit. That'd be a great confidence booster. Moving on to Memphis, get that one. And then, like the holidays are coming, things are going to get really busy, outside of basketball. So I think this is the time to pounce on it, right? Let's nail a few of these down and move up in the standings. I know that that's just me. I'm a standings person. I look at them every single day, but I think about it all the time. So I just like to look at them, maybe just a couple of wins to just boost that up, and I'd feel good about it.
You're exactly right, Brooke. Yeah, looking at the Blazers schedule, they haven't won 2 games in a row since the end of October. So they went all of November without winning 2 games in a row. And I think, before getting the win versus Cleveland, I think they had lost 8 of 10. So you're right. Like they're actually playing pretty good basketball. They're just not necessarily getting the results, at least consistently. So it'd be nice if they were able to maybe, to your point, Brooke, maybe win like 3 of 5 or 4 of 7, like something to just kind of, build a little momentum, because again, they're playing pretty good basketball. If they get some guys back, I think obviously that's going to be helpful, but it seems like they've got enough to win some games if they're just able to maybe, not make as many mistakes. They're not making that many mistakes. And I guess what I'm trying to say is that like, they don't have a whole lot of room for error, which is why I think it feels like, or not feels like, which is why I think they are generally playing good basketball. It's just they're not getting the wins because they have such little margin for error that if they don't rebound well, or if they miss a bunch of free throws, or if they shoot 25% from 3, like they can't have any of those things happen and basically beat a good team right now. Right. They just don't have the personnel for it. So it's almost like they don't have to play a perfect game, but they got to play a really good game, where they have to do one thing really well in order to, I think, have success. And so, in the game versus the Cleveland Cavaliers, Denny getting to the line a ton of times, which is something that he has done quite a bit now. I think Tom had another stat last night that Denny has taken more free throws in the last 5 games than any player in any 5-game stretch in franchise history, which is pretty impressive. And again, something too that like when you're a team that is not great in half court and you're missing a lot of guys, particularly your point guards, like scoring easily is helpful, and scoring at the free throw line is one of those easy things to do, or at least easier than shooting mid-range jumpers. But so that I think it's probably a good place to stop, Brooke. I hope that you are able to bring us back 2 more victories. The other thing too, is to your point about kind of going all out, the Blazers, with the way the schedule works out because of the NBA Cup, they finished this trip versus the Grizzlies on the 7th, which is my sister's birthday, by the way. And then they don't play again until the 11th in New Orleans. So they'll have 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So they'll have 4 days off. One of those days will be a travel day. But a little time to maybe address some things and to get into the gym to practice, but also a chance to rest, which, I think they're going hard every game anyways. And I think, every time Thiago is asked like, well, with fewer guys, like, are you concerned at all about the team, like going too hard? Or do you have to kind of watch minutes? And he's like, no, I'm not going to do that. Like they're supposed to play hard. That's what we're here for. we'll deal with the repercussions, but I'm not going to tell guys to not play hard. So you can go out in these next 2 games and hopefully really put your best foot forward, and then have a chance to kind of catch your breath a little bit. So it'd be great if they're able to get that one versus the Pistons. Obviously, that's a really good win, and that sets you up really well going into that game versus the Memphis Grizzlies. But we'll just have to see how that goes. But until then, thank you so much for joining us on this edition of the Blazers Balcony, presented by Spirit Moutain Casino. Brooke, I will be here holding down the fort. Like I said, I'm going to go to Chow Center just down the street and see some remix games. So if you happen to be in town, go on out to the Chow Center, or the games are broadcasting on KUNP 2.2. So you can watch those on your TV tonight, Thursday, 6 p.m. start time for that one. But obviously tune in to the game on Friday versus the Detroit Pistons, 4:30 start time for that one, and then a 3 o'clock start time on Sunday versus the Grizzlies. So for myself, for Brooke, thanks so much for joining us. As always, we will talk to you next week. Brooke?
Peace out!